Hi, Jamie.
Hi, good morning.
Good to see you again. And
Yes,
what a week
it has been a week, hasn't it?
it
I,
has. I think for both of us, and probably with um, some commonalities between what's been going on. Tell me about
I
what's been
indeed.
happening for you. What's sort of really in your mind this week?
Well, it's end of term, and
Yeah.
so this is the first day off after the end of term. Um, I've been writing massive amounts of stuff on the outside. I have 2 weeks and a bit in the can already dumped, and the way my brain works, I think you know it's somewhat overwhelming to say, "Oh, Jamie, here you go. Here are 15 articles that are ready to go." In no particular order, right? And so this is an upgrade from when you first started talking to me about 7 articles, right? And I say articles because they're whole gestalts. They're and I say whole meaning this is the way it comes to me. This is the part of the now, right now.
Yeah.
Um, and then maybe a year from now, maybe 3 years from now, I might see something slightly different and go examine
Mm.
it and say, "Oh, I see that." Um, but I have been recording these, let's just say, not writing them as such, but recording them. And this is how my brain has always worked. It's
Yeah.
always just kind of info dumped, if you will, from the autistic side of things. These massive scripts now, because I can handle it. Whereas
Yeah.
before it would just be overwhelming and I'd be angry about it. But I've been writing around kind of the Gestalt processor experience of different things that are
Yeah.
happening in my life, personally and professionally. Um, as usual, reaction to papers and so on. But I think there is not enough out there about Gestalt processors, right?
Mhm.
And it's not, for me, I'm not a Gestalt language processor as such. I'm a Gestalt processor, and because I am, language works the way it works,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I process music in the same way. My approach, when I still had, before in my 20s, I had my tonsils removed and they made mistakes and it ruined my singing voice. But I would approach singing in the same way. I approach mathematics in the same way.
Mhm.
I have to deal with the whole of it first, right?
Yeah.
So everything, all the way back to, in terms of like relationships.
Yeah.
And I tell my wife this, and she kind of doesn't quite understand. She might think it's cute or whatever, but I tell her that the day I saw her, I knew I'd marry her right there. Like I saw the whole of it, and it made perfect sense to me. It's taken 30 years to kind of explain everything, but right. And I'm happy she's along for the ride, I guess. But I think, as a Gestalt processor, it is the fabric. It is, the way that things work.
Yeah.
So I cannot write against it and I cannot like defend it, in any kind of random controlled trial. Prove to me
Yeah.
that your love for your wife existed in 1996, right? That's just silly. It's like asking a flower to prove it's a flower. I mean, it
Yeah.
just is.
Yeah. The evidence is there. It's you,
I,
it's your experience, it's the articles you write, it's your whole being, it's your whole profession. Um, and yeah, and no randomized controlled trial is ever going to um, show any more evidence than I've got
right.
here as I sit here talking to you now.
Right. And I think it's, kind of in relation to that piece I wrote um, back in the summer. I'm a big fan of Leonard Cohen. And I used kind of a meme that was like it triggered a gestalt, but he's on the radio and he's reading a poem, and the interviewer asks, what does the poem mean? And so he pauses for a long time, and then he reads the entire poem again. Right? And I love that. I love that. And I think about that with my own students who are in, advanced placement classes and so on that ask them to deconstruct everything. And in that article, that very long gestalt that I recorded, I kind of use one of my own poems in that sense.
Yeah.
And then I just ask the reader, stop it, stop it. That's so ridiculous. Just read the poem and let it sit with you,
Mm.
right? That's I kind of bring in Eric Fromm a bit in terms of the land of having versus the land of being,
Yeah.
right? I don't have autism because I can never not have it. I
Yeah.
am autistic,
Yeah.
right? And so autism for me is a state of being. My gestalt processing system is a state of being. I don't have a gestalt mind. I am a gestalt processor. I deal with language this way. I developed, and I can see how my development was stalled and why for so long. And then I can
Mm.
see at the point where I encountered Marge in her work and said, "Oh, this makes perfect sense." And then from that standpoint, skyrocketing into stage six and then, beyond really. And I think, for me, stage six was kind of a threshold, a liminal space. And then from there, I think everybody goes slightly differently, depending on who they are.
Yeah.
I kind of say that, I am the apex GLP or whatever. That's silly, right? Because of my very unique circumstances, I ended up this way.
Mm.
Somebody who had recognized by someone like yourself early on, fully supported, they would have access to the things that I have access to now in their teen years at the latest, right? Not in their 30s like me. And so that's what I've been on about. It's
Yeah.
kind of recording all of these kind of gestalt related things, different ways of perceiving the whole of it. And I'm just writing that into the record,
Yeah.
so that others can find it.
Yeah. And I think it's it's a bit for me, the evidence or understanding the children and young people that I'm working with and supporting, it's not about me imposing anything. It's about me attuning with that child, that young person, and those people that are around them. And through that, and there's been many of them, the similar uh, progress, the similar style, the similar connections have been repeated over and over and over again.
Right.
And some might go on to use their language because that's my kind of part of my role. Gosh, it's become a lot more, but part of it is to look at language and see that some of them do go through the stages to use grammar, but at the same time still using scripts that I heard on day one when they came through the door or I went through their door. But I can see the same thing happening over and over and over again. And it kind of goes back to that where do we get our evidence from? Just as it's
Right.
like saying, well, Jamie, show me the evidence when you are the evidence.
Aye, and not just me, but a lot of
Yeah,
other GLPs and how they
yeah,
work. And then when you step into a relationship with clients or students and families and whatnot, and you can see the child is not a one-off. They're not a unique event.
no,
You can see the evidence that the family keeps the scripts.
yeah,
I see that in my own life. And my daughter is a GLP, like I am, but not
mhm,
like I am, in a
yeah,
sense, if that makes sense. She's autistic like me, but not like me. Um, but some of her earliest scripts I still use. I love them, right? And we use them still, you know, 24 years later. And some of them, there might be one word, or they might even be a modifier to a word. And I'll give an example in a second, but they make perfect sense in our family, right? And I know my wife has commented that, in terms of these scripts and how common they are in our household, that, she's out in public or whatever, shops, and she, just slips into that. And people are like, I have no idea what you just said, lady. But you know, and so like we had holiday party at school. I was completely overwhelming. And so I'm feeling the overwhelm. I'm trying not to melt down, but I'm feeling close. And so I have a very understanding principal. And I approached her, asked her, ma'am, may I have permission to leave? Because it was before the end of school. And she looked at my face and looked at me and said, yes, yes, Dr. H, you can go, be well. She's a very nice and caring woman.
Hmm.
But when I got home, the word I have that I got, the script that I got from my daughter was nuffness, right? And so when my wife saw me in my state, right, crying, just that, I've been crying too much, look on your face, and my wife just said nuffness, and I said yes, right? And that's the entirety of the conversation that needs to be had, right? I didn't need to, explain the day. I did not explain anything. She just knew, I knew we were attuned to each other. Um, and that was that. And then I have my kind of self-care. I don't want to melt down routine so I can be, human the next day. The other thing that I thought was really cute at the time, but it really fits, is a suffix bit, right? So we think about, would you like a little bit of something,
Yeah.
right? Well, if a little bit works, what about a lot bit? Right? And so bit has, I don't want to say infected, but it has permeated our conversations. This modifier, this kind of, you know, raising or lowering suffix, it just seems to work. But then you
Mm.
go out in public, my wife telling me this, you go out in public and people are like, a lot bit. Yeah, I want a lot bit of that. Right. So it works in our family, it works in relationship. And when you explain it to somebody, like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Um, what these are, if you want, the proofs, right? They're proofs that language, these little semiotics can be passed from one person to the other and the meaning maintained
Yeah.
and communication can happen. So can I do a randomized controlled trial in my classroom with bit or nuffness? Of course not. Because there's no relation there. There's nothing
No.
holding it together. But you can see it. I have seen it, that families have these collective scripts that
Yeah.
just work. And um, to pull them apart is cruel, I think.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think it's cruel to say justify how your family works.
Yeah.
And so I don't do it. I don't participate. I write against it. I speak against it because I think, from my standpoint, you step into my shoes as a professional
Hmm.
and you vanish, right? The silence is so deep around my experience of life in professional spaces. I dread going to professional development around autism stuff because I feel the complete absence of myself in those spaces.
Yeah.
I just did that a few weeks ago in professional development where the professor got really frustrated with me injecting my own lived experience and whatnot. Even though the syllabus says that we're supposed to contribute our, our point of view and stuff, she got very cross with me and essentially threatened to fail me from the class. Right. And so, this is an ongoing thing. But the disability services people are like, whoa, whoa, slow down. You can't do that. You can't fail somebody for that. And so, I'm going to pass, I've passed the class and all this kind of stuff. But, in my profession, in my study materials, in the media that I see, I'm a
Yeah.
ghost, right? I'm something that you sense, but you cannot name, right? And so that's what the Royal College would have us believe. That's what the American Society would have us believe, that my language was absent, right? I'm not here. I'm not acknowledged. I just have a misread mind and I need to be kind of shocked into compliance, right? But we know all of that cruelty, it won't change who I am. It just will make me miserable.
Yeah. And I think that's some of the work that's happening within our professions, and around how we look at evidence within the autistic community. Nothing about us without us. I think that is
Right.
really where we need to be going, moving, in the future. But Jamie, we've come to our end of our podcast, our 15 minutes
Yay.
today. It feels like this one could keep going and going. So I feel like let's save some of this, you know, interest and conversation for our next podcast. Thank you again. It's been a real pleasure as always. And this will go
Oh,
out
it's
on
always great talking with you. And yes, we could go on and on and on and on.
So it'll be
But
posted on the Substack.
aye,
Um,
tomorrow morning it will come out. And as always, it is a pleasure to join you with these.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.